This is the Comedy Insider Podcast. I'm Scott Dikkers. Today I'm speaking with Ben Bailey, stand-up comedian, best known for hosting TV's Cash Cab. How did you get into comedy?
Okay, that's kind of a long and crazy story. I kind of broke up and got together with this girl like a million times, and this is in New Jersey one summer. And she and I had been planning to move to California together. And we just like broke up, kind of the final breakup. And I just like got on an airplane in the middle of the night and flew to California by myself with very little money and $40 actually, and a backpack.
What year are we talking about here?
This is 1993.
93, okay. So the big 80s stand-up boom was kind of on its waning.
Yeah, you could still kind of feel it. It wasn't, comedy was so completely different from what it is now. There's a small fraction of the number of comedians compared to how many there are today, and it wasn't hot. It wasn't like there were still crowds, but it wasn't like packed everywhere. It wasn't a super popular thing to do at that time because it was kind of after the boom where they just, it just kind of got run into the ground, I guess. It's before me, the boom, but like...
Yeah, but what kind of experience did you have at that point? When you were on this airplane with $40?
Stand-up experience? Yeah. None. Zero. I had never done it.
Then take us back.
I didn't even know I was going to do it. I had always been a real smart ass. I got thrown out of class in school pretty consistently for, being a wise ass. And I just liked making the other kids laugh more than anything else, really. Like, I was really upset when someone else was voted class clown. I'm still upset about it. I'm not upset about it anymore, but I was.
That was how you channeled your ambition at that point.
yeah, exactly. But so, and people had told me, "Oh, you're always called me the comedian," and like, I'm remembered in my 8th grade yearbook for telling bad jokes, which maybe I shouldn't tell people about that. But so, I didn't realize that that's where I was headed, though. So I got on this plane and went to L.A. and said, I'm going to go out to California and get into film. I really want to. I love movies. All I want to do is get into that somehow. So, jumped on a plane in the middle of the night, wrote a bad check to Continental Airlines for my ticket. I used to joke that it was the check that put, it was the flight that put them under because they went bankrupt like 2 weeks after this.
Great.
But so landed out in California, had nowhere to go, didn't really know anybody.
You're how old a man?
I am 22 years old.
Okay.
And I end up calling the one guy that I know. He lives in Pasadena, but he goes down to Laguna Beach to hang out with these guys. So I call him.
Sounds like a great opportunity already.
Yeah. Well, it actually turns out it's crazy. What happens? Like, the reason the girl and I kept breaking up was because we were totally in love and together, and it was great, except that she was seeing another dude. Not great. And I was the dummy who was like dropping her off at the airport, and she was going to California to see this guy or whatever. So, long story short, my friend picks me up at the airport in LA. We drive down to Laguna Beach, and we're at that dude's house. Just by total coincidence, I have no idea that it's happening. We end up at the other guy's house. He sees me at the front door and thinks that I've come from New York to kick his ass over the girl. Meanwhile, I don't even know who the guy. Like, I'm just clueless, but he knows who I am. So he like turns and runs out the back door of his own house, thinking that I'm there to kick his ass. We chase him down. My other friend Pete is like, no. He doesn't even know. He didn't even know that was you, but now he knows it's you. So now it's really awkward. But so I ended up like living with these dudes, this bunch of guys in this house for maybe like a month and a half.
That sounds awful.
It turned out to be good. Like,
all right.
Believe it or not, it turned out to be good. Like, and it was really weird because she had said at some point earlier on, like, "Oh, you guys are going to end up being friends," and I was like, "What? No way." We totally did. I ended up living there. Neither one of us with her anymore. Anyway. From there, I was like, you know what, this is really nice, but this is like a vacation. This is not what I need. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life,
Yeah.
So I moved up to Los Angeles, got an apartment up in LA, and I was looking for jobs, and I had this great hotel experience back here in New York. I'd worked in hotels. I managed room service at this like 5-star hotel in Jersey, and so I was like, that's where I'm going to find work most easily. wrong. I couldn't find a job at a hotel to save my life in LA. I remember going to one of them. There was an ad in the paper, 3 open jobs. I went there. There was a line, 6 people deep, all the way around the building.
Ooh.
For 3 jobs. And I was like, oh, this is going to be harder than I thought, you know. But I came out of an interview at what they used to call the Riot Hyatt on Sunset Boulevard, which is like known for rock stars and, you know, all this crazy shit happened there. Like pool on the roof, people, you know, like the patio doors are bolted shut now. So like not patio, balcony.
The balcony, yeah.
Because people were, you know, partying too much and
yeah.
throwing stuff, and maybe some people jumped off. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a big history at the place. So I went to an interview there thinking, oh, it'd be so cool if I got a job at this place just because of what it used to be or what it is. Didn't get the job. Came out. I was all like distraught and like, I've been here for 6 weeks now. I can't find a job. This is awful. Start bullshitting with some guys in the parking lot that work at the Comedy Store, which is right next door. And the guy says, you have a great voice. Why don't you come and answer the phones? We need a guy to answer the phones at the club. And I'm like, all right, that sounds good. So I get a job answering the phones at the Comedy Store. Like, you know, pays nothing, and it's like 15 hours a week, like, you know, but I'm sharing an apartment with 2 guys, so like I can actually, it's good enough.
You can kind of exist.
I can exist. I can ride my bike to anyway, so I end up getting a job there, and pretty soon I'm watching the shows. They give you a couple of tickets. Go have a drink, go watch the shows to pad the audience or whatever, get extra people in. So I start watching the shows, and I start thinking, you know, it doesn't take too many shows before I'm like, I should be up there. I should be doing this. You know, like, what am I doing sitting here watching? It just dawned on me one day, you know, and I was telling actually this very story that I'm telling you now about, and it's crazier. There's a whole part where I was on the airplane where I'm like, this is all a bad dream. I'm like closing my eyes, trying to wish myself back home because I'm so scared of what I'm doing. You know, I'm 22. I'm flying across the country with nowhere to go and no money in my pocket, and I'm literally have my eyes closed and I'm begging for a chance to get off the plane. I'm praying for it. I swear to God, while I'm sitting there doing that with my eyes closed, a Japanese man 2 rows back from me takes off his seatbelt and stands up on the plane and starts screaming and freaking out in Japanese, and no one knows what's going on. They stop the plane. They stop the plane on the tarmac. Emergency vehicles come out. The guy left his wallet in the men's room of the airport with like $5,000 cash in it. So he's having a heart attack thinking he just left all his ID and everything. I guess he had his boarding pass to get on, but he didn't have his wallet. So they let him off the plane. And then the pilot literally jokes, if anybody else wants to get off the plane, now would be the time.
I can't believe it.
So I'm sitting there praying for a chance to get off the plane. I'm given that chance, and I don't take it.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Talk about a little turning point in your life.
Yeah.
Or a little moment that's a major turning point in your life.
So what's going on in your mind? Is it just like gut instinct? It's like, I'm going to do this? Or is it more like, this isn't really happening? Just some sort of denial?
No, as soon as I had the chance to get off, I was like, I'm not getting off.
That's like the hero's journey. That's the refusal of the call.
Yeah.
Right there.
I'm not getting off.
That's great.
I have my chance against all possibility. I have a chance to go home right now, but I'm not going home. I'm scared to death, but I'm going anyway. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So
that's Bilbo Baggins.
So yeah, really. I sometimes forget that part of the story. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I forget that happened. Years later, it was the right call. Clearly. Like things went well. Like I ended up stumbling into that job at the Comedy Store. It was the only job I could get by a totally random occurrence, that I was just like talking to this guy who happens to be outside smoking after my interview at that hotel. So I get the job there. I'm telling this long, crazy story, and they think I'm a comedian.
Now, who's they? Just the people?
The other comics that are kind of hanging out, because where I would sit and answer the phone, how it used to be, it was in the back office. The manager is this guy named Mike Becker at the time. I sat right outside his office, and basically that was the green room.
I see.
And it's still there. It's so cool for me to go back and like roam around. I don't know if you've ever been there to the Comedy Store in LA, but it's cool. It's really weird and can sometimes be a little scary. Like, wow, there's a lot of crazy fucking people here right now. But it's a cool, really cool place. It's like cavernous, and there's all these weird little spots that are connected. Like, there's a spot where you can sit in the green room, and you have to like climb into the wall, but you can sit and watch the show in the main room from this little spot way up in the back. You know,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and the place is like that. There's weird little things. But so I was telling the story in the green room. There's a couple of comics, and Becker was there. I don't know if Pauly Shore was there, but he might have been. He was around there a lot then.
Okay, yeah.
And he was like super cool to me. Like his mom, Mitzi, she just would fire everyone all the time.
She owned the Comedy Store.
She owned the Comedy Store. I think she still does, but I don't know how well she's doing. I hope she's doing well. But she back then she would just kind of fire everyone on a whim. Huh. If she saw you doing something she didn't like or thought, she'd just fire you. And she fired me 50 times while I worked there.
Oh, that's great.
Who are you? She'd forget who I was. You're fired. I don't want you here tomorrow. And then Paulie or Mike or I can't remember the other guy that worked there at the time would come up and be like, "You're not fired.
That's great.
Come back tomorrow. We need someone to answer the phones."
So she's like the crazy queen of the Comedy Store that doesn't really have any power.
Well, I don't know about that completely.
Okay.
At this point, she is. She is that. I don't think she still is doing anything there, but that she still had some power then. Like if she really wanted someone gone, she could have.
So did you go up? How soon after that moment where all these other comedians heard you telling the story and thought you were a comedian? How long before you actually went up on stage?
A week, 4 days.
So what?
That was on a Monday or a Tuesday, and then I went up that Friday night.
Okay. For
the first time, so I had a few days to try to write some stuff.
Sure. And how did that go?
Well, here's what happened. This guy, Skippy Lowe was his name. He had a cable access talk show, and he did a show, produced a show at the Comedy Store on Friday and Saturday night. Maybe it was Saturday, I can't remember, but he was like, "How long have you been doing this? You're so funny." And I was like, I hadn't done it. I had never done stand-up, but so I said, I just started. More or less, and he was like, "Come and do my show. Come do my show." On I think it was Saturday. I can't remember. But so I went and did his show, and turned out later that Skippy Lowe was interested in me as a person, shall we say, more than a comedian. But,
sure.
But he'd be like, "You should come over and watch my show with me at my house." I'm like, "No, I don't think so. I don't think so."
The invites just kept escalating.
Yeah.
So was it like an interview show when you did his show?
No, it was a stand-up show, just a straight stand-up show.
So what material did you do for that?
I wrote stuff that week for the first time ever. I decided to write some things.
How much stuff did you have to write? Like how many minutes?
I had to do 6 or 7 minutes, I think.
So it wasn't his cable access show.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was a showcase, a live stand-up show at the club. His cable access talk show was a different thing. It was actually a TV interview show. But the show at the club was something different.
So how many minutes do you get on that show?
I'm supposed to do 6 or 7 minutes.
Okay, and that's your first time up.
My first time
his showcase.
Ever doing stand-up was on his show, the Skippy Lowe show at the Comedy Store in November of 1993, I think.
Wow.
But so it went great. It was in the belly room, of course, which is like this little room upstairs where, so it's the smallest room in the place. There's three venues in the building. But so, it went great. I got a laugh with the first thing I said. Not that it was any brilliant.
You were Ben Bailey, the comedian. I had always been that guy.
That guy, yeah. But boy, is it different.
Natural.
Is it different than just being that guy, with your friends or whatever? But,
yeah. So how did you deal with just the stage fright and the all those typical first-timer issues? Doing well, did that just buoy you, or were you still terrified, or were you not even terrified at all?
I don't know if I would say that I did well, but I got a couple.
You got a laugh.
I got some laughs, but I had already when I was in college, I had to choose an elective class, and I chose public speaking. I don't know why. I guess it was
prescient of you.
It just it was, I guess. Good word use, but just the decisions that I made at that time in my life were just not generally based on much. They were just like, okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I just sort of said, all right, I'll do a public speaking course, and I did it, and I got an A+. I got a perfect score
Great.
for the entire, for the class, because I just something just clicked when I got up and started speaking. I did a thing about drunk driving, and I made up a story, and I smashed my fists on the podium and scared the crap out of everybody. And the teacher was on her feet. Bravo! Oh, it was amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, so I was like, all right.
It was like persuasion speech or whatever.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly.
Debate style.
It was one of their 3 or 4 that you had to give.
Right.
You have to. So that was my message speech or
Great.
whatever
So
it was.
you were.
So I had a little bit of
yeah.
confidence going in. I knew all right, I had stood in front of people before.
Got it. You're not totally green.
But I was scared shitless, of course, anyway.
Sure.
But my first line, I said, I was really nervous coming up here until I remembered from the Brady Bunch that I should just picture everyone in their underwear. It was like an old Brady Bunch reference. And it got a little laugh. And then I sort of improv a thing about this really big fat guy in the front row. You look great in those panties or something. Got a bigger laugh. And I swear to you, I knew right in that moment, this is what I'm doing. This is what I am.
That's
I'm
great.
a comedian and will be for the rest of my life, like it or not.
Wow. So it sounds like you were just in a zone, automatically. You were you tapped into this force.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like you're surfing, like you caught a wave. It's like, I like this. I want this.
It just felt like home. It just felt like, here I am. When you look when you're looking for an apartment,
you can feel
or
it.
a house or whatever, or a car, and
it's like, that's my car, that's my house.
Yeah, there's one when you walk in, you go, oh, here it is.
Right.
It felt like that, and then that was it. I stayed out there for maybe 3 or 4 months, and everybody there was like, and things were very different then, but this might still be true. People were like, if you really want to be a comedian, you need to go to New York.
Interesting.
You need to go back and work in the clubs in New York. Now, there's more clubs everywhere than there were then.
Yeah.
But I still think that that's probably true. But I don't know. There's a big scene. I mean, I went to Houston, and there's like a sizable comedy scene.
There's one everywhere.
Yeah, I asked these guys in Madison, Wisconsin, how many comics there are in the comedy scene in Madison, and they said 60 or 70.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
That used to be the world. There used to be 60 or 70 in the world.
Right. Now you go to any mid-sized town.
Now there's 60 or 70 comedians in Madison, Wisconsin. It's amazing. And there's room for it, apparently.
Yeah, no, people love it.
Seems to be room for it.
People love it.
It's great.
So cool. It is great.
Because to me, it's making something out of nothing.
It is. Well, let's talk about that, because that first material that you wrote,
right?
You probably prepared that Brady Bunch joke.
I did.
But you ad-libbed the other guy, and then did you go back to some of your prepared stuff? And how did you approach the writing of that? Had you ever written jokes before?
I shouldn't say that. I started to say I had never written any jokes before, but when I was 7 years old, I think, I wrote a joke that I thought was brilliant.
That counts.
And no one got it, generally. It was a silly joke. It was keep in mind, I was 7 years old when I share this with you. The joke was, how old was King Tut when he died? And the punchline is, he wasn't. He was young. He was 17. And I just thought it was genius.
That is brilliant wordplay.
But no one, everyone was like, what? Shut up, stupid kid. What are you talking about?
So it seems
So that was the first joke I wrote. The next joke I wrote was probably the Brady Bunch line that I used the first time on stage years and years later.
But it seems like you were able to tap into that trait that many 7-year-olds have, which is they just think everything they say is funny. So they're totally confident in the joke. So if you go up on stage, and even if you're bombing, you have to have some level of confidence to continue and to keep going and keep trying.
Right.
So you must have had, some kind of reserve of confidence, because you've learned by now how important confidence is to the whole comedy process.
Yeah.
But at that point, you're just up there scared shitless, and any confidence going on had to have just been purely instinctual.
Yeah, it was it was that confidence that you have when you're young. when you have no reason to have it.
Right, and you don't know.
And then later in life, you're like, I should be more confident now, but I'm not.
Right.
Pure ego or
right.
Adrenaline or bravado or something. I don't know.
That was fueling you. So how did you approach the writing of the jokes, since you didn't really have any, except for that very important 7-year-old experience?
I just sat down, got a notebook and a pen, sat down and just tried to write anything that was even remotely funny that came into my head.
Did you picture yourself on stage and picture an audience responding, or are you just going on things you thought were funny and hoping later they would connect?
I pictured myself on stage, I think. Saw myself doing it. I did that. I was big into that. My mother had put visualization in my head very successfully in a Little League baseball game when I was super nervous because I could pitch. I was a really good pitcher, but I couldn't hit. I was horrible at hitting, and it came down to me. I'm the last chance we have to stay in this game, and it's the championship, the semifinals, the game before the big game.
Okay.
And so my mother came up and told me that if I believed it and saw it in my head, I could do it. I believed her 100%, and I went up and hit the game-winning triple with my eyes closed.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Your life is like a cartoon.
And I became a believer.
Movie.
I know, it is, right? There's a lot of ridiculous little things like that. But
just impossible happenstances or glorious moments that shouldn't have been.
Oh, there's so many. There really are. I'm very lucky to have them. I need to keep track of them because they really have been guidance, random guidance for me. But
yeah, you'll have to put them in your book.
Yeah. Or a movie.
Or a movie.
Or a book that becomes a movie.
Yeah.
These are big plans.
Excellent.
But
we should talk about those.
But so I did visualize. I did imagine myself up there saying it and how they might respond. And
that was a big tool that you used to get the jokes out.
I think so. But, I also, I wrote about, like most people do when they first start doing comedy, I wrote about stuff that had been written about.
Stuff that is going to work, like the remote control or dating or whatever.
Yeah, stuff that, not that I know is going to work, but that just felt like what I thought a stand-up bit was.
Yeah, cliches.
Yeah.
That's where you go.
Yeah, it's just, there's only a few avenues when you're first starting,
yep,
and you end up writing stuff. And I was hacky. I did stuff that other comics had done that I had seen as a kid and didn't realize.
Yeah.
I do it not exactly, but the concepts you wouldn't realize that you had heard them. When you were 10 or 12, and then 10 years later, you're trying to find funny stuff, and some of the stuff that you have in your head as funny stuff was planted there by another comedian. Right. So I don't mean I was a hack stealing bits. I mean I was writing about generic things that had been covered.
Yeah, you weren't breaking any new.
I wasn't breaking any
ground.
new ground. No,
right.
No. And I just want to be clear. It's not like I killed the first time I went up.
You got some laughs.
I got some laughs, and it was enough.
It was enough for you to know.
Yeah, it was like catching a fish and going, I'm coming back to the pond, But, so I wrote, I can't remember, I wish I had that notebook. It'd be interesting to see, but I had that same notebook for years.
Wow.
I probably do still have it, but...
the first notebook.
Yeah, the very first one.
Wow.
But I don't know.
How does it look? Is it a lot of stuff crossed out? Is it a lot of
No, I never
around,
crossed stuff out.
Stream of consciousness.
I just keep writing.
Okay.
Keep going.
And you go back and look at that and try to find the gems.
And the bits that survive, they'll be in notebook after notebook after notebook.
They'll keep coming back.
They'll keep coming back. So it's because you end up making set lists to keep them straight.
Okay.
So I would have separate. And if I had all of my notebooks from stand-up in this room with us, it would be crowded in here. I literally have. I mean, I don't know how much. It wouldn't be crowded, but probably a stack 3 feet high and 5 feet wide.
Wow.
2 feet deep, a lot of little tiny notebooks. Wow. And they're my farm league. If I'm dried up and I'm not coming up with anything, I go back and flip through them.
So you go back to before you go back to a point that you can't remember anymore, so that it's reading as almost new to you.
Yeah, well, usually I'll remember them.
Oh, okay.
But they won't be in my conscious mind,
right?
Until I go back and go, oh yeah, I remember that thing. that awful thing that I wrote way back when. But you do have some good stuff. Like as a young comic, I would have concepts that I didn't know what to do with, but I knew there was something there.
Sure.
And I'd go back later and go, oh, you know what? That was a good idea. I didn't know how to exploit it back then, but now I do.
Right.
I got to be honest with you, though. Like, at this point, my writing is more just my talking. Like,
you could write in a recorder.
I could like my stand-up, it used to be I would write them down as a concept. Then I would work on them and do them over and over and over, and they would evolve, and I would write the new incarnations of the bit each time. And then it was like, I don't need to write them each, as they evolve, they would still evolve. But now I have, like, this is what I'm going to talk about. And I just talk about it. So I'll have lines that I do each time, but it's less structured than it was, and it's more like, I don't know, it's like the stand-up Ben and regular guy Ben have sort of met.
Interesting.
After all these years.
You've become like a Bill Cosby, where you can just get up there and just talk.
No, wait a minute.
No,
I'm just kidding. But a little bit like that, where I just feel like I'm just talking.
Right.
And those
just
are
telling stories or whatever.
Yeah, or just like riffing on a bit. But I'm lost. I'm gone. I'm off somewhere else. Like I get sometimes when I'm playing guitar, or if I'm swimming, or like that sort of zen, that place where it's just happening, and you're just along for the ride.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, because I know a lot of comedians labor over the exact wording of the jokes and the timing of the jokes, but you're really thinking now more in terms of topics, and you're just telling stories. So, like you said, the real Ben has met comedian Ben, so your just natural way of speaking and your natural cadence must have built into it like comedic pacing and little punchlines that are going to get laughs, so you don't have to obsess about, like Seinfeld would do, about if I just put an extra half a second before that word, it'll get a better laugh or whatever.
Yeah. Well, there's still that. Like, I guess what I'm talking about is more the evolution of the bit. But like, if I'm going to go and tape a special, then I'm doing the best stuff. There's not a lot of riffing going on,
right?
Especially on the first run.
But that stuff developed through riffing.
Yeah, but it's all it's the best. It's like greatest hits of your riffs on that particular subject.
And so you don't write them down. You riff on them enough, going to clubs and working on the material. You riff on it enough to the point where you know the material.
Yep.
And you can do it solid.
Yeah, I know the point that each bit is making.
Yeah.
And you're right about that timing, that just sort of being built in.
Right.
Like, I often say something to, like we just did major renovation at my house, and it's like, I'll say stuff to the contractors, and they just laugh, and I'm like, that wasn't a joke. What are you guys? What are you laughing at? And I think it's just me saying it to them. They like, it's just somehow it's funny.
That's what they say about the best comedians. Is that they say that the reason they're comedians is because they're just naturally funny. They talk funny, and they have a funny cadence, and things tend to come out sounding like jokes.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. So can we figure out where that came from? Like, because you were comedian Ben in school. So where did this natural sense of like being funny come from? Like, what was the need to be funny?
The reason I think I became the funny guy was I don't know if you ever study any psychoanalysis or psychology or anything, you realize that children fill different roles within their family, and that's just sort of how that ended up for me. Like, my mother and my sister, when my sister was a teenager, fought like crazy, like every night at the table, screaming, yelling, throwing dishes, and like mayhem. And it was really tough, really sucked. Like, I grew up thinking it was normal, that's just kind of how it is. And then realized, like, no, it needn't be that way. You don't have to have a huge fight at the dinner table every single night,
Yeah.
But so it ended up with these really quiet, like, they would go back and forth and scream and yell, and then my dad eventually would yell at everyone, and then then it would just be quiet. And it was like this awful, super uncomfortable, terrible quiet, So much tension and like.
So this is what you grow up with from the earliest age you can remember. This is your reality.
This is when, no, not the earliest age I can remember, but a certain period when, say I was between 8 and 15 or something.
Okay.
Or 16, somewhere in there.
Formative years. Yeah,
and so I became the comic relief. And during those tense moments, I guess I just couldn't deal. I couldn't sit there and just feel that shit anymore. So I had to try to do something to alleviate it.
And this was subconscious.
Yeah, it wasn't a conscious choice at all. I just looking back, that I think that's what happened.
Trying to lighten the mood. And
trying to lighten the mood.
Ease the tension.
Trying to make everyone okay.
Right.
By, if I could make them smile,
that's
then...
very kind of you.
Yeah. I don't know if that it was altruistic.
What was the effect?
So much as of survival, but...
Yeah. What was the effect that had on the family?
It didn't do much.
Huh.
It was a Band-Aid. Can't fix fix something like that with some laughs. I mean, it's a Band-Aid. That's exactly right.
But it's the only...
If I can make everyone laugh, then we could move on.
Right.
So...
The dreams of a child.
Yeah.
But
like trying to save your family by making them laugh.
Right.
It's impossible.
Right.
And so,
But you're strongly motivated to do that. It's like the only pathway you have to try to fix the situation. And so all of your mental energy is probably being poured into that.
Everything goes there.
And so you're really getting good at it.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And
so good at it.
Probably when you start becoming...
what you do everywhere. That's when I start becoming a wise ass
clown.
At school.
Yep.
Yeah, because it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
If I make everybody laugh, then it makes me okay.
Right.
And it creates this illusion that I can save the world by making them laugh,
Yep.
So you try to recreate that. None of it's a conscious thing at all.
So let me ask you this.
At the time.
Once you become a professional
mm-hmm.
and you achieve some notoriety for what you do and it's a job.
Yep.
Do you ever ask yourself, why am I doing this again? And does it feel okay? Does it feel like this is really you, or is this something that just happened to you?
I definitely have had my moments where I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm sure every comedian has. I'm sure every, steam fitter and everything. Everybody has those moments where they're like,
sure.
Well, what was I thinking? Or, what?
Right.
But on a less dramatic level, why am I doing this? It becomes a real question when you understand why you started.
Right.
When I went through a divorce and went through therapy with and without my ex, and learned a lot about myself through that time, and understood the way I do now why I am a comedian and why it all happened. And it doesn't change it.
It doesn't change it for you. It doesn't make you feel like, well, this is an unhealthy choice.
No, I still need it.
Yeah.
I still have to have to feed that. Even though I understand it, even though I've addressed a lot of the pain that came with that scenario in my youth that didn't get addressed then, that's the problem with it. Really. If I make everybody laugh at the end of some huge awkward shit that feels terrible, then everyone feels okay for a minute, including me. But the pain that goes along with living through that does not get addressed for me.
Right.
It does for them, maybe, because they're yelling and getting it out. But for me, it does not.
Yeah, you're like absorbing the tension.
For everybody. Right? I mean, that's what we are. They say comedians are tortured souls, and here's the psychology behind it.
Yeah.
Most comics will have a story similar. A lot of them probably much, much worse, went through much, much, much worse things. Like, I had a good childhood, but that particular period was very difficult. But so it doesn't change it. Understanding it, I still know why I do it.
And you still enjoy it.
And I still enjoy it. I enjoy it more than ever.
And it's
now.
not like it's nefarious or useless gesture. It's motivated through your basic human kindness. You want to make people feel good. You want to make them feel better. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's great.
Aside from my own dysfunctional need for it,
well, that's
there's
what
nothing
I was
wrong
going to say.
with it.
Was like, if you're still absorbing the tension,
right?
Like, how does that affect you, and how do you get that out?
That's interesting because I don't feel like I do that anymore.
Okay.
Absorb the tension. I mean, the one good thing about living through that type of thing is, like, as a comic, if you're bombing and it's awkward, you're like, this is still easier than sitting quietly with my family that just had a huge fight.
Right.
I don't even know you people, so, you know.
It's safe, yeah. Maybe that's why you felt so at home in that first experience on stage. It's like you're getting all the good part of that, entertaining people, making them laugh. None of the bad.
None of the bad. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, there's a similarity there.
Yeah.
In atmosphere, that if you're comfortable within it, I really think most comedians will have something similar that led them to be.
Right.
Whether they have a real understanding of it or not, I don't know how many of them do, but I know a fair number that do.
Yeah, when they're younger, starting out, probably not so much, but eventually I think a lot of them do figure it out.
Yeah.
Like what?
It's kind of weird. It almost seems like it would just take the magic away.
It can.
Practical.
It depends. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different story. Yours is so interesting because it's almost like your life situation crafted you to be the perfect comedian, because it's not something you're doing for unhealthy reasons. You're doing it for good reasons. You get a good reward out of it.
That's really cool.
There's a lot of people who are doing it for an unhealthy reason, like they're trying to win back dad, after a divorce. That's mine.
Oh, it really?
And so when I got really well known for doing my comedy, there was suddenly this hole. Like, I realized, wait a minute, he's not coming back.
Right.
So wait a minute, why am I doing it?
Right. Yeah. Now why am I doing it?
And I was talking
do I still want to do it? That's interesting that your perspective changes mine, because I never really felt like I was doing it for a good reason.
Interesting.
I felt like I was doing it to try to fill this empty hole,
Well, everybody has the hole. It's so funny because everybody's trying to fill the hole.
Yeah, but you can't.
You can't.
But and
then once you realize you can't fill the hole, some people are released by that.
Right, they're like,
okay, great.
I don't need to try anymore.
Yeah, I'm not trying to fill a hole. I'm just doing this because I like it, or it's fun, or it's a skill I've developed. Now it's my job, or whatever.
Right.
But other people have a hard time. I had a hard time because I was like, wait a minute, who the hell am I?
Right. Yeah, who am I?
I'm not the guy who tries to fill that hole.
Yeah, then who am I? I still try to fill the hole.
Interesting.
Because the job of filling the hole is like, it's the work.
It's Sisyphean, though. You're shoveling dirt into that hole. You're never going to stop.
Right. Well, I don't know. I feel like my hole, I can fill it up, and then it'll slowly pour out again.
Oh, so you get some relief for a little bit.
Yeah, I can fill it up, and then I can feel good. But that, for me, that's just work. That's just like whatever it might be.
It's a good, honest, hard day's work.
It is. Like it's true, man.
No, I hear what you're saying.
My grandfather used to say there's something to be said about a hard day's work. And I would, under my breath, say, yeah, it sucks, as a kid.
My mom always used to say the world needs ditch diggers.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about, is digging, filling the hole.
Yeah, filling the hole. Yeah, actual ditch diggers. Yeah. But whatever it is, I need to be doing some work of some kind. Creative is the best kind. And it almost doesn't matter. It could be music. It could be
pool cleaning if
drawing.
That was all you had.
It's funny. When I go home today, I'm gonna open my pool, and I will relish every moment of opening it and getting it clean and getting it ready to go.
Yeah.
Because I can sit and look back at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And appreciate the good work.
And it's true for anything. It's true for anything that drives me at this point. So this is great for me. I really do have a sort of a new positive perspective on why I do stand-up.
I'm glad to help.
Well, I just do it now because it's fun and it's still exhilarating, and there's nothing like it. You don't get feedback from anything else like you do, maybe playing live music, but that's not even the same. You're a little bit more removed than you are as a stand-up. The
feedback is so specific.
So specific, so immediate.
Yeah.
So true.
Yep.
Like, crowds can't be collectively polite.
Right.
And just laugh. Oh, we should laugh.
Right.
You know. Although once in a while, if things aren't going well, you get a nice group that really want to help you.
Yeah.
This is when he stopped talking. Laugh, so he doesn't kill himself.
That's not good. So I want to take a random side tour here to a time of your life when you're an older teen.
Okay.
And in your college years, you did a lot of brawling.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm wondering,
I was like, "Where's he going with this?" Yeah.
I'm wondering if that feeds your comedy in any way, or if that was like maybe that was an unhealthy route that you took.
That was definitely an unhealthy route.
You know, that was like the Y in the road. One way was brawling, one way was comedy.
Yeah,
and maybe
pretty
you've
much.
discovered. I'm just curious to know like how you saw that.
I haven't thought that much about it, but like I always had a temper. Since I was a little kid,
tension that you were
had a temper. Yeah, well, even before that,
I
I get frustrated and angry like really easily if I couldn't do something just the way I wanted to. My son is exactly the same way.
I think a lot of kids are.
Yeah. But so I figured out that I had a temper. I didn't know why. When I was a college-aged young man, I didn't know why I had the temper, but I knew I had it. I thought it was like genetic. I didn't realize that it was like this anger that I had built up, like, through dealing with all that stuff. And there's like an anger kind of at the world. If you grow up thinking that it's all, milk and honey and
right, or should be,
yeah. Exactly. And then you get to
everything should be perfect.
Everything should be perfect, and everyone should be nice. But so I had some anger about that. But yeah, I did some fighting when I was in school. I also kind of got picked on as a kid because I was a very sensitive kid, and I was a lot smaller then.
So you blossomed later.
Like I did. I grew after high school.
Oh,
when I graduated high school, I was like right around 6 foot, and I weighed about 150 pounds.
Wow.
So I was really thin and kind of tall, but like I was. And now, I'm half a foot and like 70 pounds heavier than that or something. But that all came after high school. So like I had anger from being picked on and treated like shit by these kids when I was younger. And I guess I also went to college in Norfolk, Virginia, where there's the university, there's another university, there's the world's largest naval base, and there used to be this whole row of bars where everyone would just go and drink. And so you had like sailors and college guys and only not that many women there was a lot of fighting going on. Plus everybody was all like full of hormones at that age and everything, but I don't know how much they were related. I guess they were like go one way or the other. I think you're right about that. I could either be the angry badass guy or I could be the funny guy.
And that worked out a lot better. It seems like that
funny worked out better.
Satisfies you more.
Yeah,
like if you had gone into, say, boxing, you could get your aggression out, but maybe it wouldn't have been as satisfying.
Yeah, because the problem is like addressing anger doesn't really address what's going on.
It makes it worse, a lot of people.
It can do something if the anger is legitimately anger. But if you're masking pain with anger, then getting angry doesn't do shit to help you get over your pain. It just makes you angrier and more frustrated and tired. So eventually you figure that out and think, this isn't working. But yeah, I got in a bunch of brawls when I was in school. My friends and I, all we did was lift weights and drink. We didn't pay too much attention to what was going on in school. I did more than a lot of the guys in my crew, but you can't do that forever.
That's so great that you had a crew.
Yeah, I had a whole bunch of dudes that
brawling.
Yes, we'd go out and just get in fights. It all ended though. We got in a fight with some guys that were like in a gang. Somebody smashed a bottle on my friend's face.
Oof.
It was awful. And that just like everyone was just done.
That's like a wake-up call, right?
That's a wake-up call. Like, okay, this is college and it's, whatever. But then it's like, okay, this is real life and this is serious business.
Right.
We can't keep living this way. It's dangerous. We're going to end up in jail or dead or, or seriously injured. I mean, it wasn't a beer bottle, it was a beer mug.
Ooh.
Out of nowhere, this guy just came and whack. guy started a fight with me because I said hello to his girlfriend and told her that she looked good. I thought she had lost weight. We were just back after the summer break. And he was like, "Oh, you saying she used to be fat?" You know, like, there's no way. There's no way around it.
No.
The guy just wants to fight, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Take it easy, man. Take it easy." And my friend's like, goes, "Fuck this guy. I'm gonna go get everybody." And he goes and gathers all of our dudes. He comes back with like 7 guys, and we realize that the other guy is standing there with like 16 guys. And they're not afraid at all, and they're just like, and then all hell breaks loose. And luckily, my friend that happened to, he's okay. I worried about him for years after that because it was right toward the end of school, and I was like, oh, that was awful what happened to him. He doesn't even think about it anymore.
Really?
He got surgery on his, he got plastic surgery, and he hardly even noticed it.
Huh.
He does still have a scar. But he's like, oh, I don't even think about it anymore, man. I'm totally fine. I'm like, oh, cool. Why was I worrying about
it's haunting
it?
you.
It's haunting me, and I'm fine. But yeah, I did some brawling. I'm not super proud of those days.
Well,
there's a little bit of pride.
The indiscretion of youth.
Yeah.
But, I'm sure you gained some confidence doing that.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
Perhaps helps you on stage.
I'm lucky in some ways. Being as physically large as I am, that's a very nice thing to have when you're out doing shows on the road and you're by yourself. There's plenty of times, if you're going to be a comedian, you're going to go out on the road, there's going to be times where you're in a situation with people from the club, people from the crowd, whoever, it's just going to happen.
They're going to mess with you.
They're going to mess with you at some point, and it's your job to put them in their place and keep control, and they're not going to like it. And
a lot of comedians, maybe they're nerdy or they're small or whatever. They're just going to use the tool that they've mastered, which is the tongue.
Yep.
And they're going to laugh, get laughs out of it and, joke their way out of it. But you've got this ace in the hole. Well, you could joke about it, but then you can also kick their face in if it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, the good part is that most of the time, if somebody is like waiting for me after a show or like, hey, when they come up and get up close to me, they might still be mad, but they maybe change their mind. Like, it might be easier just to tell them to fuck off than to actually, there's plenty of guys a lot bigger than I am, but
and I should point out
big enough to sort of slow people down and make them think about it. Whereas a lot of, I've heard stories. There's a lot of guys that have gotten into situations where they're just kind of fucked. Obviously, I could too. It's not like I'm Superman, but it definitely helps.
It's worth pointing out that not only are you a large, imposing guy, but you are incredibly fit. You used to be a certified personal trainer.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm a little bit of a workout nut.
And you work out constantly. Yeah, so you're not kidding around.
No. Yeah. And I do have that temper underneath
and
there.
The temper, you've got everything.
Which I keep at bay, but it still gets me. It still gets me sometimes, I'm a much mellower man than I used to be. I learned my lesson. I got in a lot of fights. I eventually got in one and got in trouble. Got arrested. Got locked up.
Oof.
And
when was that? In college?
No, that was after college.
Okay. So the wake-up call didn't really wake you up.
It did, but I still had the anger. I still, I guess I still had something to prove, or I still just didn't understand. I still was just mad.
So where did this happen?
Confused. Out in Jersey.
Okay. And you spent the night in the clink?
I spent more than one.
Oh. What happened?
I went, I got in a fight with this guy and beat him up pretty good, and he pressed charges against me, and we went to court.
Wow. Big deal.
Yep. I got locked up.
And what is that, like a misdemeanor?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was years ago now.
That seems like a much more real wake-up call.
That was the final wake-up call for me. Yeah, that was like on a lot of levels. Like what's important and
yeah. How old were you at that point?
That was not too long before I started doing stand-up.
Okay.
Maybe a year before.
Wow. So yeah, it really turned things around.
Yeah, I came out of there like I spent 16 days.
Wow.
And I saw some pretty horrific stuff. It's just a county jail, but
no fun.
No fun, and yeah. So while I was in there, I was like, I'm gonna I was scared, of course, and motivated to change things. And like, I had a couple of good friends that would come and see me, and it was hard. Obviously it was really hard, but so I was like, I'm gonna just work out from morning until night every day. That's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna read, I'm gonna write, and I'm gonna work out. And
what did you write?
I didn't end up writing as much.
Okay.
I read. There's a couple of books that just were there. I would read in the books, and I would doodle, draw little pictures, and I wasn't supposed to be able to, but the guy let me have a pencil and a pad, which he was not supposed to do.
Yeah.
But so I worked out. I turned to that. That got me through. I was doing push-ups 50 at a time all day long, and pull-ups on the shower bar, 20 on a set all day long.
Wow.
The last day I was in there, I did over 1,000 push-ups and almost 200 pull-ups in the day. And by the end of the day, when it was lights out, lockdown, I was just dead. And I had my friends. I wasn't supposed to be allowed to get cigarettes, but somehow, I don't know, this guy, one of the guys, took a liking to me. Somehow looked out for me.
Well, you were probably funny.
Maybe that was it. That's the nice, innocent version of what he liked about me. I really don't know one way or the other, but for some reason he was nice to me, and so he would let my friends give me cigarettes. Cigarettes were like currency.
Right.
So I didn't want to smoke them all. I might smoke one. So I had all this, basically, money.
Right.
So, and I was working out like crazy, so I was trading my smokes so that I could watch what I wanted to watch on the TV, so that I was getting like other people's breakfasts and lunches, and like after a couple of weeks, I was like pretty set up, and I was leaving. I'll never forget. I was leaving, and I said thanks to the guy. Thanks for helping me out while I was in here. And he said, do me a favor and don't ever come back.
Good advice.
Yeah, and I said, don't worry, I'm never coming back. You'll never see me again. I live in the same town.
Then he probably saw you on TV.
yeah. He's like, yeah, you'll never see me again until Cash Cab,
right,
or doing stand-up or something. But so yeah, that was the wake-up call for me. I'm really like telling a lot about my personal life that I never have before. But when I got out, I went home, and my parents had moved. They had sold their house.
And didn't tell you.
Well, I can't remember, but it's not like we had a lot of time to chat while I was in there. And
I suppose.
I remember my grandparents had come to visit, and my parents like lied to them about where I was.
Oh, wow. Just seems like you'd get wind of something like that, but maybe not.
Yeah, but I knew that they were going to.
Okay.
But I didn't realize that they were going to be gone when I got back. And the house was empty. The house that I grew up in was empty, except for my belongings, which were in a corner of the basement.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, came home to an empty house.
And so you packed up that stuff and headed out, or?
No, I had a party.
Oh, that's funny.
Another fantastic decision made by me, but that was kind of like, fuck you, I'm going to have a party in your house.
Sure.
You're not here right now because it's too embarrassing for you, or, I'm having a fucking party in your house.
And you're 21 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So we had a party in an empty house. A get out of jail party.
Yeah, your friends are excited to have you back. But they don't know you're a changed man, though, at that point, that you're...
No,
really...
they didn't really.
And it took you a while to make the big move. I guess you were there with the girlfriend and everything else.
About a year and a half or something from then. But I just started working. Nothing fancy, just whatever jobs I could find in town. Sure. And I just started working all the time and putting money away. And planning
So
this.
you'd have that $40.
So I had the $40. Yeah. I didn't do very well. Well, yeah, I didn't do very well with putting money away. I was working, but I was spending money too. I wasn't a totally changed man. I wasn't going to fight anymore,
It's a
but
process.
I was still partying. You know, I was still drinking a lot and going out and.
So let's fast forward.
Yes,
you
could
start
we?
doing
From that period of my life.
You start doing the comedy, and you start getting better and better at it. At first, you're kind of not breaking new ground or whatever, but then you start to really find a voice.
Yes.
You start doing this particular type of comedy. I call it like surrealist observational humor.
You have given me the answer for whenever I'm in an interview, by the way,
Yeah.
and they say, what type of comedy do you do? I say, surreal observational, and I think that's perfect.
Yeah, because it's like, it's all this reference humor about day-to-day life, but it's surreal. It's
Right.
very different from what like Carlin or Seinfeld do with the observational humor. It's like your own little niche. And
Oh, thanks, man.
yeah, and it's
Doesn't feel that way to me.
yeah, it's just you, and it's just the way you
feels
see
like
the
me.
world. Yeah, which is great. But after a little bit of success, in years of doing it, you're getting really good. You're doing Comedy Central specials, and you're getting booked on TV and stuff. And then the dream of every stand-up comedian happens to you, which is you get your own TV show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did that come together?
That's another crazy story, really. It's just like the others, honestly. Like I was out in California. I was touring and doing some stand-up shows. I did some shows up in San Francisco, and then I went down to L.A., and then I did a theater in Ramona, California, which is maybe an hour out of San Diego. And it just so happened, I found out, 2 guys that I grew up with were in San Diego and were going to come to the show. They come to the show, and just by total and random synchronicity, call it, my good friend from when I was first in Chatham, which is the town in Jersey that I grew up in, is a drummer in a band called The Samples. The Samples are playing at this big venue down the road from the theater, like less than 10 minutes from where I'm performing. My buddy Bill is playing drums with this band, The Samples. And we're like, oh, we're going. We're just going to go. So we go and we get in. And I go up and I see him on the stage and he's playing. We're in the middle of the song. And I yell, I go, much louder from the side. And he looks and sees me and his mouth drops open. He drops his drumsticks. He stops playing in the middle of the song and runs up to the microphone and goes, Ben Bailey! Hey, Ben Bailey! This is before Cash Cab, obviously. No one knows who Ben Bailey is. Everyone's like, what is wrong with Bill? He's lost his mind. But so we end up hanging out that night after the show, and he's like, my girlfriend and I have got a beach house for the next week. It's just the 2 of us. We got this big old house for the whole week. Why don't you come and hang out with us? And just, and I'm like, I don't know. I got a red-eye flight. I had to drive back up and get on a plane. Not a red-eye, but it was like, it must have been a red-eye, but I don't know how I could have gotten it from way down there. But I did. I didn't go to the beach. I said, I got to go back. I got some audition for some stupid game show in a taxi tomorrow morning, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but I'm going to go. I don't want to miss it. So I turned down this like really tempting offer to go because I've got this audition for Cash Cab. So I fly home and I basically go straight to the audition, and it just goes great. It just goes so well that I come out and I'm like, what on earth just happened? Like, I was totally exhausted and a mess, and like, it just worked. Huh. And then so 5 or 6 auditions later, callbacks, including one where I was driving, and they were...
So they started you in a room, and then they...
Started in a room.
Last auditions were driving.
Last audition, just the last one was was actually in a minivan.
Okay.
But the interesting part about all of that is that I had been a limo driver early on, and I wrote a show about limo drivers called Driving Me Crazy. And
a pilot.
A pilot. And I was very big into the visualization and positive thinking. And so I was very focused on the idea that I would get a show that I would make this show with me as a driver for all these years. That doesn't happen. Someone stole that idea and sold it and made a pilot. My thing. And I just said, I was like, oh, fuck everything at that point. A couple years later, Cash Cab falls out of the sky. Now I have a show. It's not the show that I wrote, but it is a show close. With me as a driver.
Right.
It's like, it's hard to see that as total coincidence.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
But so yeah, it was the dream. It was like, I can't believe this. This is happening. I have a show. And then we started getting Emmy nominations and winning Emmys, and I'm like, wow, this really is happening.
And you're getting recognized on the street.
Getting recognized outside, and
you're really
it's
famous.
Interesting. It's very interesting when that happens. It
can mess with your head.
It can, yeah. It made me understand why, like, when kids are famous,
it's not good.
It's not good.
That is not a good mix.
It is not it's such a hard thing to fathom. Yeah. I was 40, or, not 40. I was 36, 37, a grown man.
But imagine if it had happened to you when you were 21.
Yeah, forget it.
It would have destroyed you.
I would have had no chance of having any bearings or any real understanding of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like walking into a cartoon or something. When you go, I've been going to airports for years, flying around doing shows.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're walking in an airport and there's people are like, hey!
Everybody wants to be your buddy.
It's like, wow, this is so weird.
Yeah.
It's great. It's very nice, but it really can be startling.
Is it exhausting on some level? Are you like an introverted guy, or are you happy to say hello? And
I have my moments where I don't want to deal with that. And
do you just put on sunglasses and a hat and just try to lower your head, or?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Does
that work all right?
I can hide. You figure out that you can hide in plain sight.
Yeah.
Just with your mannerisms, and put your head down. Don't look at anybody. Nobody will notice you. Just,
Yeah.
Well, not nobody. Some people still will.
Sure.
People always notice you in like the worst possible moment. Like I came in for an audition a couple of weeks ago, and I had, so I got up and I worked out and I shaved. It was an audition to play a general. So I had my, I was like perfectly neatly groomed and everything, but I get in the car and I look and I've missed a spot shaving, and I have like this little like cluster of hairs on my upper lip right under my nose. I'm like, oh God, I can't go in there like this. This looks ridiculous. So I park and I go to a CVS and I get this little hair trimmer thing. And I'm just like on the fly doing this thing. So I open it up and I just throw everything into the garbage can. The cardboard and the plastic that it came in. I throw them into the public can on the corner of like 32nd Street and 6th Avenue. There's a million people around. And I'm just trying to get this thing to work, and it won't work. It's dead. I've just bought, and I have like 5 minutes to get in. And and I look, and the garbage has just been changed. The only thing in the garbage can is the stuff that I just threw in there. The city guy has just come and put a new bag in it. And I'm like, okay, I guess I could just reach in and pull it out, because I got to go in and return it to get another one because it doesn't work. And I'm like, hopefully no one will notice that I'm putting my hands into a garbage can. So I turn to go for it and just do this quick little grab. Right as I do, this guy comes walking by and dumps his giant plastic Dunkin' Donuts coffee mug into the whoosh. And I'm like, oh! But I can still get it. I can still get the stuff without touching anything. Somehow it's still dry. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to go for it. I lean down, I grab it. As soon as I stand up, there's a dude right in my face. He goes, "Are you the guy from Cash Cab?" Right there. I'm like, you couldn't write it better. And I'm like, yes. And I just bolt. Just run and hide behind a food truck. Just to try to get out of there. It's like the worst possible moment. But so I shaved the little thing in the elevator on the way up.
And that's rough, because the whole being famous thing, like, that's a whole nother job. That guy there is probably walking around for the rest of his life saying, yeah, Ben Bailey, I met him once. Kind of a jerk.
Yeah, just ran away.
He said hello. Say hi to me or anything.
Yeah, no, I said hi to him.
Oh,
I said, yeah, hey, how you doing?
You just ran away and shaved.
And then kind of ran away. I was nice about it. But it's true. That is work.
You have to be a super nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
because those people are going to tell stories about you for the rest of their life.
They are, yeah.
And it's an important part of the job.
It is, and you need to
people don't
be
like
aware
the
of that.
21-year-old who gets famous doesn't have any awareness of that.
No, it's like, and it makes sense because it's such a huge thing to sort of comprehend.
In a crazy way, it's like a responsibility.
It is
of the fame.
It is.
It
is absolutely. If you want, if you care what people think of you.
Yeah,
which I guess people do in general.
Well, if you're a total jerk all the time, it's going to come back around and probably hurt you in your industry.
Yeah,
at some point, because
I think so.
Based your persona and so on. That's based on your likability to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if you work with people,
that too,
you're going to end up working with people.
One person in the whole room of producers, one guy says, "Yeah, I heard he was kind of difficult."
Yeah,
that'll be it.
And then everybody goes, "Oh, everyone checks the box.
Check the box. Not going to happen."
Yeah, he's a dick. Don't bring him in.
Yeah, so it's like eternal vigilance almost.
You're always going to run into people. It really is.
Yeah,
and you're always going to run into somebody that you worked with on something.
Well, Ben, thanks so much for hanging out and chatting today. It's really interesting getting to know more about what makes you tick.
Yeah, I think I revealed a little more than I meant to.
All right, we'll cut out all that. No problem.
But it's all true, so it was fun, man. It's interesting to think about that stuff, and you definitely get to a point later in your life where you go, why am I doing this? And am I going to keep doing it?
Right.
And I'm going to keep doing it.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it still feels great.